Hey everyone, CyberHub Engage podcast, your daily cyber briefing Friday wrap-up segment. My favorite part of the week. One, because it's Friday, and as a Jew, I love the Sabbath. I get to turn off my phone, I get to drink some Shabbos wine, maybe a scotch bourbon or two, and then I just get to chill out until sunset on Saturday and just kind of relax in my own little place and just reflect upon this week and upon all the things that we're about to talk about. And then the things I'm gonna talk to you guys about next week. And I've got a very, very special guest, first time on the show. So give him a round of applause. Professor Nigel Smart, the founder of Unbound Tech, who is joining me from somewhere where it is very dark.
Yeah, it's dark. It's definitely dark in Belgium at the moment.
Belgium, home of beer, Belgian waffles.
French fries, Belgian waffles, mussels, everything really.
I've been to Belgium once. It's a really funny story. I was on my way to a flight to Tel Aviv. I connected through Brussels. We had a emergency on the plane after we took off. The cabin was filling with smoke, so we turned around and dumped some fuel, landed back in Brussels, and I got to spend. It was like the week before Christmas, so I got to spend a night and a day and a half in Brussels until we got back on another flight back to Tel Aviv, and that was a lot of fun. We bar hopped all night.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
There was no sleeping that night at all. It was just get drunk in Brussels. You know, when you're in Belgium, do as the Belgians
do and drink the beer.
Drink the beer. Yep. So it's been a crazy week, Professor Smart. It's been an unbelievable week when it comes
to Nigel. It's easy.
I will call you Nigel. That is fine. I like the name Nigel. So we are going to go with Nigel. But, last week, one of the things I was talking about was, NSA kind of breaking the silence and trying to show that they're an industry partner and letting people to know how to patch. And patching with Windows still remains an issue. From a technical aspect, why is it so difficult for a lot of organizations to get these patches done? And what can be done to streamline this process? Because that's really the vector of attack for a lot of these cyber vulnerabilities.
Well, I think the place with Windows 10 at the moment is relatively good. I mean, so people are used to patching, but even in a really high-tech situation where we have our university support, I'm in K11 and we have support. We actually try and the corporate, when they roll out Windows, they want to actually make sure that everything's okay. So they kind of start delaying patches. Actually, last week was so big that they didn't do a delay. But often you have a delay on a patch in an organization just so they can check that all the corporate software works. So I was reading something earlier today about Windows Explorer is still being used by a huge number of organizations simply because they need it to run legacy applications, despite it not being supported for, 4 years now. So it's not just patching software that's the problem. It's actually, software's the problem when it's out of date, when you can't patch it.
So one of the things I was saying is when we look at patching from a perspective of organizations, right? Like you really mentioned, is the big challenge with it all the time is what am I, if I patch, it can take down some specific applications in my business and so forth. One of the kind of best practices around that is, duplicate your network. So when you're patching, you can patch something that's offline, then turn it on. Then the hindrance to that is cost. But I'm guessing that, the cost of running a concurrent network is probably cheaper than having to deal with a breach.
I'm not sure. I mean, a lot of the patching of software is kind of standard of application software is relatively straightforward, but it's the patching of the OS is the problem because you don't know how your users are actually going to use it. So it's very hard to duplicate a live system when it's the OS over a very large organization and you don't really know, how an OS change is going to affect different applications, especially ones which have kind of baked themselves to be very close to the operating system. So I think for most of the cases, it's fine, but it can be problematic in some situations, depending on the kind of applications people are running on their desktops.
And that kind of takes me to another story, which is, I feel like every week, I hear Bob Dychenko's name or VPN Mentor, in the news because they've just put out another Elasticsearch database out there in the cloud somewhere that's got a ton of data and a ton of PII, and it's unsecured, it's passwordless, it's just open for the world to gain access to. And so I find it very difficult to understand why not encrypt, why not password protect these databases.
Yeah, exactly. Why not encrypt? Why not encrypt? Why not have a password? Why not do, the gazillion, well, not even the gazillion things, the top 10 things everyone tells you to do with your data? Make sure you authenticate people who's got access to it. Make sure you have strong passwords or two-factor authentication. Make sure data's encrypted. When you transfer, encryption of data when it's at rest, encryption of data when it's in transit, do all of the really, really basic cyber hygiene stuff, and you solve half the problems. But, like you say, you have people still, putting stuff on the cloud with no passwords. We have, people using dumb passwords all the time. We have organizations make it even worse by actually having stupid password policies.
Well,
and there's a lot of work on really interesting work. Like changing your password every month is a stupid idea. Making users choose passwords, which is incredibly complicated, means they write them down. There's a lot of research in doing the real basics of cyber hygiene.
Well, it seems like the basic blocking and tackling is often ignored, right? Like, anything where you're going to access something, MFA it. Just multi-factor authenticate it. Any database you put out there, encrypt it. It doesn't matter. Encrypt it at the highest level possible. Encrypt it at the lowest level possible. Encrypt. One of the aspects that's really frustrating for me, as a CISO, I'm an advocate that you should never fire a CISO after a breach, because it's not always on the CISO's shoulder. The side note to that is Equifax, right? I'll give you Capital One, for example. Capital One did everything perfect. I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better handling and a better running security department. Let's review these. And I always talk about this. So our listeners who are listening now, Nigel, they're all like, James, you beat this through. But I'm beating this through because somewhere, somehow, this has got to come into fruition from an industry perspective. And that is, they had a bug bounty program for external. Someone submitted a lead. Someone submitted a bug bounty thing. The next day, someone took it seriously. The next day, they started investigating. 10 days later, they announced the breach and already had an arrest. Of the data, 99.6% of it was encrypted and unusable by the hacker, meaning of the 100 and some odd million records that were there, only, I think, 300 or 400,000 in total were not encrypted. All the rest was encrypted. So, and so they responded, they identified, they responded, they took it seriously, they launched an investigation, they were able to connect with law enforcement and lead an arrest, and he still got fired. And that to me is mind-boggling, but then I look at these Elasticsearch cloud vulnerabilities, and it mind-boggles me even more.
Well, I think companies really need to be aware of the problems here, because actually, if under European GDPR rules now, if you have personal data and it gets stolen and you haven't done, the basics, the law says you've got to cover, I can't remember what it is, industry best practice, so actually putting stuff on the cloud with no password, which isn't encrypted, is not quite industry best practice. It's that really will get you fired, I think, these days. And,
I love that term, by the way.
Kill your company with a huge fine. 4% of your worldwide turnover.
Yeah, we did a story this week about under GDPR, there's been 278 breaches reported daily to the ICOs in different places, and that the ICOs don't even know how to handle it, so they can't even start to issue fines, nonetheless start investigating it. I mean, isn't that a fit? I mean, that's so Europe, right? I mean, I lived in Europe for a little while, so I know how they operate there. That's so like the modus operandi of Europe. We're going to make a law. We're going to make it vague as And then we're going to start enforcing it on people. And then once we start enforcing it on people, we're not going to know how to handle it. And then when we do find big companies like Google, Facebook, or whatever, we find them such a number that they're going to appeal it, and the government's going to spend more money litigating the case than it is from the fine itself.
But I think we're actually seeing in Europe, companies are changing. Definitely, it's making companies focus on getting things more secure. And yeah, there's a kind of like, it's the sea change. People are realizing that data is important and they need to keep it secure.
But they're punishing the victim. I mean, GDPR punishes the victim of a crime.
Yeah, I know, but don't be like this by saying, like, if I've got my car, if I've got my house, you know, and I leave the front door open and I put a big sign outside saying, I've got shed loads of TV equipment, come in and rob me. Yeah, you know, I really think, you know, punishing that person for encouraging crime is the right way to go. You know, you should kind of, everybody should. You know, why should the police waste their time investigating someone being robbed in the house when they've left the door open and put a sign outside saying, please rob me?
Well, because one, I mean, from that perspective, you're absolutely right. But I think so in the Elasticsearch cloud aspect, I think one of the things about leaving that door open is people are putting data on the cloud and they go, no one's going to find it. It's on our own private cloud. And then all it takes is one setting, one thing, one scan, a very sophisticated security researcher, and they find it, right? So that's not really leaving the door open. That's going to sleep at night and leaving your front door unlocked because you forgot to check if you locked it or not before you went upstairs because you were so sleepy and tired. And you were just like, you know what? I left my door unlocked. You don't think so?
No, I don't think so.
I love disagreeing with people. Yes, finally.
Like I say, you got the basics, you know, the basics that you have to do. And if you don't do the basics, then you're to blame.
So your basic is so if my front door is closed but unlocked, and someone happens to come and try to open my front door, and it happens to be unlocked and they get in, that's my fault.
Yeah, but you haven't put a sign outside that says "Please rob me."
Right, but I don't think any company puts a sign out that says "Please hack me."
Yeah. But if I reckon if you don't do the basics, password, encrypt, you know, if you're running a website that's not HTTPS these days, if you're logging into a system which is using default passwords, if you're using stupid protocols like Telnet rather than SSH, if you're doing any of these really, really stupid things, you know, and you get attacked, then you deserve it. And you deserve whatever fine people give you, because actually the only way we're going to change things is by people just doing the basics.
Right. I can't even, you know, I can't even counter that because you're essentially mirroring what I'm saying. You know, in my mind, I look at it as if you're not doing the basic blocking and tackling, meaning if you're not patching systems that you should be patching, Equifax, if you're not, you know, if you don't exercise proper cyber hygiene, Equifax, and, you know, if you're just, you know, holding data.
Give another analogy. I mean, apparently you play the stupid version of football in America where you kind of like, they're all a bit wimpy and they have to wear all this kind of.
That's because they hit each other. They don't slide tackle, then roll on the ground for 10 minutes. Then wake up and run full speed.
Exactly. But if you send the quarterback out and you don't give him all that stuff all over him, and then he gets his bones broken, well, tough shit, right?
Right. You know, I mean, I love the whole, you know, I love Europe's view of of the National Football League in America, because they go, we don't understand why these guys put on pads. And I'm like, have you seen the World Cup? The World Cup's best highlight reel isn't the goals. It's all the guys that roll on the ground screaming like they're about to die, right? Like they're Al Pacino after his daughter gets shot in Godfather 3.
Exactly. Yeah, they can get an Oscar for that, yeah?
Right? That's the highlight of the World Cup. And NFL, you know what our problem is? Guys get a concussion, get up and keep playing with the concussion protocol, then their brains become mush. Don't call those guys sissies. They're warriors.
We are diverging here, but I'm English, and so we play rugby, and
Rugby's a man's sport. Listen,
a man's sport.
Rugby's a man's sport. Soccer's a kid's sport. That's why soccer's so popular in America. Because it's for kids. You let them run around for an hour chasing a ball, kicking it.
Yeah.
I mean, when I grew up, I'm a Liverpool fan. So I got to tell you, like, I grew up on Liverpool. I grew up on Robbie Fowler, Michael Owen. Those guys were men. Eric Cantona, he was a man. When he played for,
but he could be a member of the audience.
I still have a Cantona jersey, and I put my collar up.
Oh, yeah.
I still know my soccer, I know my soccer. But yeah, I mean, not everyone can be as a bust as Wayne Rooney. Wayne Rooney's kind of America's what's his name? The guy who just retired today, Peyton's younger brother. What's Peyton's younger brother's name? Eli Manning. Eli Manning. His brother, dad, Hall of Famers, great players. It's like Wayne Rooney. Comes from a legacy of great players, only he's the bust. Wayne Rooney's the American version of Eli Manning.
The British version.
Yeah, but he didn't win them. Like, the defense won them. I mean, I'm sorry, Micah. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were an Eli Manning fan. Micah's chiming in on our conversation, Nigel. Here in America, we haven't drawn the boundary lines behind the scenes. And finally, you know what? I want to finish today's episode kind of on is ransomware. This whole thing about encrypting backups, shaming and naming the victims, and threatening to put out their data. Can this be mitigated? What are things that organizations could do? And I'm the one that says never pay a ransom. You pay it once, they're going to come after you again. Where do you lie? Because you're really a cryptographic expert, a master of this. So how do you? Nigel, are you with us?
Yeah. We're going to end up agreeing for the entire time. I agree with you that we should never pay ransomware because it just encourages the criminals. I think there's a very interesting take on this show. I mean, because you're talking about the Maze versus medical diagnostic laboratories thing, where the Maze, a ransomware firm, if you'd like to say in those sense, said that unless MD Lab didn't pay up, they would release all their data to the world. I think this creates a very interesting thing. It just moves from ransomware to extortion, and to the issues is that if the information becomes available, then that's actually a data breach, rather than so it moves ransomware into a completely different legal situation.
I mean, you said it very interesting from a legal perspective. Ransomware is extortion.
Yeah, but it's extortion in the sense that we'll publicly do something to you.
Well, that's like kidnapping your wife and saying, if you don't pay me, I'm gonna send you a part of her ear. And then if you don't pay me again, I'm gonna send you her toe. And if you don't pay me, I'm gonna send you, her other ear. And
but if you don't pay me, we release all this data, and then you're liable under GDPR.
Right, or you can do what Mel Gibson did in Ransom, the movie, which for those this was before Mel Gibson went woo woo. He had a movie where his kid was kidnapped. And they wanted $5 million, and he went on TV. He put $5 million on TV, and he said, "I'll give this $5 million to anyone who brings me the kidnappers." And so I think that's what I'm waiting for, the organization that says, "We're not paying you shit. Here's our data, everyone. Here's our data." But you know what? They want 10 bitcoins. We're putting 10 bitcoins right here. Anyone who tells us who these assholes are, I guarantee you would catch them in 3 days. There is no honor among thieves.
Maybe you should pitch that to a Hollywood exec.
Wouldn't that be a great, Netflix? That'd be a great Netflix show. Because all their, cybersecurity hacking shows on Netflix just blow.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you could. I mean,
you ever seen, these shows where they try to break encryption and they're like, all I gotta do is get over this encryption? Does that insult you as someone who's in cryptography?
Well, not quite, because, so the two examples I've come up with is there's a film called Sneakers with Robert Redford, which is actually quite famous. And remember, there's an album called RSA, and the A is Len Edelman. He actually advised Sneakers. And if you look at the first scene of Sneakers, there's lots of maths on the board related to breaking codes, and that's actually genuine maths related to breaking codes. That's kind of cool. And then recently, the last episode of Silicon Valley, the entire plot revolved around breaking the kind of elliptic curves that we go back to the beginning of the show we were talking about with the Microsoft update from last week. Okay, so the whole last episode of Silicon Valley was the entire spoilers for everyone. The guys work out that their neural network will break all the codes on the planet, and they have to work out what they're going to do with it. And that was actually advised by one of my colleagues from Stanford University, a guy called Dan Bonnet. So actually, a number of these tech shows, actually, the tech isn't bad.
Well, Silicon Valley, though, but Silicon Valley was a show that was based on tech in Silicon Valley, and the script, they had so many tech consultants on. I mean, there's very...
the episode where they argue over space and tabs is brilliant. To construct an entire plot over the difference between space and tabs, that's really appealing to nerds.
It is, but that was the whole point of the show. To me, I kind of, it's funny sometimes to go to sleep. I watch one of those CSI, NCIS shows if I can't remember. And they're like, look, everyone, they're all like, I'm breaking the encryption now. Oh, look, we've decrypted all the information. They're about to launch a missile.
Yeah, I had a kind of interesting one. I was watching the CSI once. I can't remember which one it was, and they had this, and they were kind of like, they had this weird 3D thing, and they had this 3D image of someone's head, and they had the bullet coming through, and I went, that's just nuts. So I went into back into the university the next day, and I went down to the guys who are in that human-computer interaction lab, and I said, I just watched this stupid episode of CSI. They had this really dumb thing where they were showing someone's head in 3D and there was a bullet going through. And they just said, is it one of those? And pointed to this device over there. And I thought this thing was like pure science fiction. And actually, they had it in just a standard university lab to display heads in 3D and the skull. Maybe CSI isn't as stupid as I thought it was.
And with that being said, maybe it's not as stupid. So going forward, when you see this kind of stuff happening on TV shows, don't discount it right away. Although, my appeal to Hollywood is please stop using hackers in hoodies that are, losers, because I know some really fit athletic ones.
We're to blame, because how many tech companies, when they want to do a splash or, want to do a splash on some hack, they have the stock photo of the guy in the hoodie over the keyboard.
That's every stock photo. I yell at Micah when he uses those.
That's all they have in their library.
That's all they
Well, yeah, because, I don't know, some, like an elegant people like us as a hacker would not really cut it.
Yeah. Nigel, you have been so much fun. Like, I don't want this episode to end, but we have to. We have to, but you'll be back.
Well, I promise to come back.
You promised to come back, and then we can debate soccer over football after my San Francisco 49ers beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl in 2 weeks, which, by the way, the Super Bowl in London, like on Mayfair, like they shut down the block for the Super Bowl. Like it's a block party.
I don't know. I no longer live in England, so I have no idea.
Well, the Brexit is pretty much over with. You can go back now.
I can't. That's exactly the point.
Nigel Smart, everyone. Professor Nigel Smart, all the way from Brussels, home of beer, French fries, Belgian waffles, and all other mussels and all other things from Belgium. Also a great little place. By the way, there's a place in England called Belgo. Awesome little restaurants. Everything's like Belgian monks.
Yeah, but Belgo is for Belgian food, yeah?
Yeah. It is. But it's in London. But it's one of my favorite places to go to. It's
cool.
So it's one of my favorite. They have rotisserie chickens. As someone who eats kosher, I love rotisserie chicken because that's pretty much as kosher as it's going to get. When you're in a city where you may not have a lot of kosher options. So plus their French fries, wow, and their whole line of beer, wow. Okay, don't get me started on that. I can get dragged into it. For everyone tuning in, thanks so much for listening. Make sure you check out Professor Nigel Smart, his company, Unbound Tech, one of our proud sponsors here at the CyberHub Engage podcast. They've got a great white paper for all you guys to tune in, read, get your grips around key management, because that's really crucial in any part of encryption and anything that you do in your organization. I'm sure Professor Nigel Smart will be back for future episodes here. Until then, enjoy your weekend. It's Friday. So enjoy your weekend. Hopefully it's not as cold where you're at. We'll be back with so much more on Monday with our daily cyber briefing live at 10 a.m. Eastern every single day on YouTube, and our CISO Saturday special. We've got a really good one coming out tomorrow, so make sure you subscribe. 9 a.m. tomorrow. You'll see who our surprise guest is, and I promise you it's going to be a good one. Until then, folks, have a great weekend and stay cyber safe.